Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a upcoming winter storm for portions of the northern plains, the Tennessee Valley, and into portions of the mid-Atlantic, where some areas could be getting as much as 6 inches or more of snowfall according to some model projections. We'll be going over the GFS and the European model, and we'll be giving you my thoughts of what could happen with this event. I'll also be giving you my snowfall forecast for the northern plains part of this system, not the full part of this system, just because it is a bit too early for that, but at least the first part of the system, which will be occurring tonight into tomorrow and into even Wednesday there. So we'll be giving you my forecast for that. And again, we'll talk about a couple other factors, including thunderstorms and cold air behind the system. So here is the current National Weather Service page. We have not a lot going on. We have some dense fog advisories for the central part of the country there, and we also have some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings. The winter weather advisories in the purple, winter storm warnings in the pink, and that's for portions of the northwest there. We have some avalanche warnings in effect for portions of California, Idaho, and into portions of Oregon there. And then we also have some wind-related advisories in those browns and those golden colors right there for portions of the central Rockies and into parts of the western United States. So here's what the thunderstorm risk is, and you can see this will be for Wednesday into Thursday, and the main threat of thunderstorms will be Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and we're looking at a general thunderstorm risk according to the Storm Prediction Center for portions of Texas, Louisiana, and into Mississippi. I think they will probably extend this out a little bit, and they might even add a little marginal risk closer to the coast there for Louisiana and Texas. There is definitely some severe weather that could be possible, and I think probably by tomorrow they'll also add some sort of region for these regions, because it looks like at least a general thunderstorm risk might be possible Thursday morning into some portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia there. So let's start talking about the models, and let's start off with one of the models out of the two that we're going to look at, the European, and we're going to start with the GFS, and then we'll look at the European model. And I just want to give a little disclaimer here. The GFS model was upgraded in air quotes here this summer, and they upgraded it just by pretty much what they did is trying to get rid of all the hype that it was causing 300 hours out. And the GFS was notorious for bringing out like really big storms, 316 hours out, very far out, where it's not really realistic. So what they tried to do was fix that, and by doing that they've made this the models so much warmer and also so much weaker in terms of the storms that it produces. The storms this year have been so underplayed by the GFS, and also it's been so much warmer than what actually happened. You could take yesterday's storm over the northeast as an example. The GFS was showing barely anything with that, and you ended up getting 6+ inch amounts over portions of Pennsylvania and upstate New York. So you can definitely tell how the GFS has been underplaying it. We're going to go over the GFS, and I think the GFS is actually quite accurate in terms of low pressure placement and also where is the precipitation going to be, but it's not very good at the precipitation type or necessarily how strong the winds will be, or how strong and how heavy that precipitation will be. So it is useful in some aspects, and you definitely have to take the best qualities out of each model and then combine them with the best qualities of other models to get the best representation of what could happen out of these storms. So here to be by Tuesday night, right around 6 p.m. Let's start rolling through the model. We have a low pressure down in the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, but we're starting to see another low pressure start to form out through South Dakota there, and this is going to become your primary low pressure system. We currently have some fairly strong southerly winds, which I do agree that with the GFS on this. I think it might start off as rain for portions of Nebraska and South Dakota, but then I think as this low pressure heads eastward and further to the south, and you get more of that northerly wind, I think you will start to get a lot more colder air, and I think that will switch over most of that precipitation into some snowfall for those regions. So if you play this through, you start to see that as we do get more of that either easterly or northerly wind on that back end for the Dakotas and into Nebraska, you are looking at potentially some light to even moderate or even heavy at times snowfall in Nebraska, South Dakota, and North Dakota, and again some snow on that southern end, just because you are dealing with some of those southerly winds. And that would be for Wednesday right around 12 in the morning. Here's by 6 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday, January 6th, and you're looking at a mixture of rain and snow there for portions of Minnesota, Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota, and maybe even into Nebraska by that point. And then you start to see that by Wednesday in the early afternoon, right around 12 p.m., so right around lunchtime, you're looking at that low pressure moving down into Kansas and Missouri. You're dealing with a little bit of snow up through portions of Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Minnesota, but it's really tapering off by this point, and we're starting to head into another phase of the system. We're starting to deal with a little bit of severe weather activity, and I was actually surprised when the Storm Prediction Center kept that thunderstorm risk fairly far to the south, kind of within this region. I'll actually do that in a different color. They kept the risk fairly far to the south, kind of just staying within this area, when I think that could have been expanded further to the north, and who knows, they might actually expand it by tomorrow. But I'm seeing a bit of severe thunderstorm risk up through Louisiana and Mississippi throughout those regions. And then as you play this through a little bit more, you start to see that low pressure, another low pressure, forms down in Mississippi and Arkansas. We see snow banding to the north and Missouri and into Illinois by this point. And then as we zoom out a little bit more into the southeast, we have that system driving through Mississippi and now getting into portions of Tennessee. And basically by this point, it's all rainfall for these regions. But we are starting to set up the environment for some of that colder air. We have some colder air moving in on that east side, east of the Appalachians, and that's what we call wedging, and that usually happens on the eastern side of the Appalachians, where you get some of that colder air ahead of there, where you can actually have some maybe 10-degree differences on either side of the Appalachian Mountains. So definitely you could see some fairly cool temperatures on that eastern side of the mountains, and those temperatures I think could overnight, especially if the system can linger off a little bit and you can get a little bit less cloud cover, that can help lower your temperatures quite a bit, and some areas might even get down into the mid-teens Thursday night into Friday morning if the conditions are right and are definitely there. And I think probably into the early morning on Friday you'll start to get some clouds run through, and I think that will limit the amount of cold air that you can get just by a little bit, but you will still have a lot of areas that are below 32, and this is where I really disagree with the GFS on what it's doing. So you can see by this point that by Thursday night, this would be by right around 7 p.m. Eastern time, we're looking at just a little bit of snowfall there for North Carolina, and it's only in the highest elevations there, when I think it could be expanded through much of eastern Tennessee and into western North Carolina, right through here where it's showing a little bit of rain. I think this model is just way too warm for what might actually happen. And also, you might have a couple of these showers further to the north turn over to snow, and I don't think the GFS is really picking up on that too well. It's not really doing well with these cold air masses just because of how active the pattern is. And then the system continues to head further to the east, and this is where the GFS does okay. It does show a load of snowfall, but you're still by Friday morning, you don't have a lot of snowfall. You see a couple little areas there for North Carolina and northwesternmost South Carolina, but it's not too impressive, and I really disagree with the GFS on where it's placing that snowfall. You see that low pressure offshore of South Carolina and North Carolina, and I actually rather agree with this from the GFS. And again, it's very good at low pressure placement. It's just not very good at where does that cold air set up, and it's not really good at air masses per se. So it's not very good at picking up where is that cold air going to be. And you start to see that low pressure continues to head further to the north and to the east. Now, here's what I really this is one of the models I actually have rather good agreement with, and this is the European model. So you start to see that band of moisture come down from southern and central Canada there, and you're looking at some of that snow set up for portions of the northern plains. It continues to head further to the south over the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, and you continue to see more of that snow set up. This low pressure continues to head further to the south, and as we transfer that view further to the east, you see over some of the Ozarks in Missouri and into Arkansas there, you're dealing with a little bit of mixing and maybe even a little bit of snowfall into some of those regions. And then as we continue this forward, you start to see that by Thursday early in the afternoon, this would be right around 12 p.m. Central Time on January 7th, you're looking at some of that snow for Arkansas Arkansas and Missouri. And then as you continue forward, you start to see that you are starting to see some snow in parts of North Carolina and northeasternmost Georgia. And then that snow does set up for portions of Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky, which I think is definitely a possibility. And you can see that wedge of cold air over portions of Virginia and North Carolina, where you do see that 32-degree line inch further south on the eastern side of the Appalachians there. And then you start to see that by Friday in the morning, by this point, after you've had all that cold air come in overnight, you still have that cold environment in place, and that system is sliding just far enough to the south where you might be able to get a little bit of snowfall out of this in Tennessee and into western and maybe even northern North Carolina, as well as southern Virginia. This would be by Friday morning, right around 7 in the morning Eastern time, and then here would be by right around 1 p.m. Eastern time, and you're looking at that snow setting up for western North Carolina, southwestern Virginia, definitely colder than what the GFS was showing, and I do agree with this a lot more than what the GFS was showing. And then you start to see a little bit of a stripe of snow for central North Carolina. I'm still iffy on that. That's definitely a possibility, but I'll still have to kind of tinker with what I'm looking at here, and it's definitely still something that's debatable, and definitely it's not set in stone just yet, and that could definitely change over the next couple of days. And then it would be by Saturday morning, and it is showing some heavier snow over eastern North Carolina. Again, take that with a grain of salt. It could definitely change, but if it continues to show that snow over eastern North Carolina, then definitely there's no reason why I wouldn't trust that, because the rest of the model I do agree with, although that portion over eastern North Carolina where it's showing a little bit of snowfall, that is something that it's kind of a little bit more disputed and something that could definitely change a lot more. Now, here's your snowfall totals from the entire system over the northern plains. First, you start to see maybe, I think there will be a pocket in southeastern North Dakota where you get maybe closer to 5 or 6 inches of snowfall, but generally it should be a 1 to 3 inch event. And then moving further to the south and to the east, we do see a little bit of snowfall for the Ozarks in Missouri and Arkansas. And then you also see for eastern Tennessee and into North Carolina there, where it does show some 3 to 7 inch amounts. And again, you could probably take these in half, and they would probably be more accurate assessments of what might actually stay on the ground. But still, it's definitely interesting to see that footprint of the storm moving through much of North Carolina into southern Virginia and into eastern Tennessee, where you guys might be dealing with a little bit of snow. Now let's start looking at what the GFS shows for snowfall. And again, it shows that area over southeastern North Dakota, where you get maybe some of those higher totals, and then over portions of eastern South Dakota, eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, and western Minnesota there, that's where you're looking at 1 to 3 inches of snowfall. And then here's that view further to the south. I really disagree with this because it's showing no snow for these regions, as well as that snow being contained to portions of the southern Appalachians, when I think it could be expanded at least a dusting for some of those areas further to the east, although again, we still have a lot of time for this to change. Now, here's my forecast for at least the northern part of this system from now through Wednesday. Mountain snow is expected again over the Rockies, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Most likely 6 to 12 inches of snowfall in a lot of those higher elevations. Here's your under an inch area, and that's for much of the northern Rockies, and then also that next stripe for portions of the Dakotas, especially the eastern Dakotas, eastern North Dakota, portions of Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and into Minnesota there. And then here's that 1 to 3 inch region. You see stripe for portions of Wyoming, Idaho, and into Montana there. And then another area for portions of Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, and North Dakota. And then even that 3 to 6 inch area for a couple areas. One for that area in southeastern North Dakota. Another section there for portions of Montana. And another region for eastern and east central Wyoming there, where I'm thinking you're probably going to get 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6 inches of snowfall in some of those isolated cases there. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.